body tracers, and body tracing. If the keyword research tools I have are any indication, they are one of the most popular kinds of poi tricks. But where did they come from, and how did they get the name? Drex here from Drex Factor Poi, teaching you poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain, and in this very special explainer video, I'm going to be drilling into the history and diversity of body tracing. Before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Flow DNA, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultra Poi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all of these awesome companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I've got down in the description of this video. Body tracing is one of the most ubiquitous and popular categories of poi tricks out there, showing up in examples as diverse as snakes, hybrids, archer weaves, and so much more. In fact, as I was doing research for this video, it became clear that the concept is so embedded in the poi world that many of the tricks that we refer to as body tracers were around long before that term existed. We've kind of retroactively given the label to a wide variety of poi tricks, and that's okay. That actually happens way more often than you'd think. But it also means that sometimes it's a little messy figuring out what does and does not belong there, and how we even define the term to begin with. So in this explainer video, I'm going to take you through the world of body tracing by first defining the term, then talking about the history of it, and finally some of my favorite approaches and frameworks for thinking about it. Let's start with the definition. So near as I can tell, nobody has ever tried to come up with a formal definition for body tracers. It's just kind of been a term tossed around for a loose collection of tricks. But I'm going to try and do it here anyway. And I think that the core of what a body tracer is can be boiled down to three diagnostic characteristics: reels, motion, and proximity. Let me show you. Let's start with the first part of that equation. Reels, or as I sometimes call them, tic-tacs. Here, I'm performing linear isolations out to either side of my body and back in wall plane. My hands are moving back and forth across my body and in close proximity to it. It looks cool, but would we call this a body tracer? I don't think so. If instead I add a reel component to those linear isolations and wrap them around my shoulders, it's a completely different ballgame. We would call this trick a snake, and now it most definitely does seem to be a body tracer. Now let's talk about the motion component of this. Here I'm performing a crosser, a well-known intermediate poi trick that involves performing reels with the hands tucked tightly up next to the body while crossed. Clearly, this checks off the boxes for proximity and those reels, but a body tracer? I think that's stretching it. If I switch this up by having the hands move up and down the body, however, now it starts to feel like an actual body tracer and a component of one such body tracing hybrid that I like to refer to as the Nevisole. The key to this lies in keeping the hands moving. For our final example, let's take a look at fountains. This is one of those tricks that everyone learns near the beginning of their poi journey, and we certainly have the hands moving as well as reels. But is it a body tracer? Clearly not. But if I keep my hands in close proximity to my body, lo and behold, the character of the trick changes, and I think we would definitely consider this to be a body tracer. We would refer to this trick as an archer weave fountain, or just archer fountain for short. So with these three components in mind, I'd like to propose the following definition of poi body tracers. Body tracers are an umbrella term for reel-based poi tricks characterized by broad hand movements that stay in close proximity to the body. Is there a body tracer that you can think of that doesn't fit this definition? Let me know down in the comments, but for now, I think it'll do. So now let's talk history. Where did body tracers come from, and how did they get that name? It's really hard to say for sure, but it seems likely that the first trick that we'd consider a body tracer would be the archer weave and archer weave fountain, both of which seem to have been introduced to the poi world circa 2003 or 2004. Now bear in mind, absolutely nobody was calling either trick a body tracer at the time. But they do seem to have inspired a multitude of other poi tricks that had qualities that might put them in this category. We see an explosion of tricks that would later be considered body tracers coming out of European spinners in the late 2000s. In particular, the work of Thomas Nevisole Johansson, G, and Ivan Mel Gorbanov show off tracers that would later become mainstays of the poi vocabulary. But near as I can tell, the name body tracing didn't exist until roughly 2010 or so. That's when Leo Akaza put together the first of what would turn out to be several videos breaking down the concept and how one could create new body tracers. I'll cover some of these videos in greater depth later on in this video, but thus far I've been unable to find references to the term before those videos came out. So we had the tricks and we had the concept behind them. So where did the name come from? According to Leo himself, the name came from being inspired by the similarities in the style of movement between Poi body tracers and a class of liquid dance moves called tracers. A similar concept could also be found in the glow sticking community at the time too. As Leo worked to parameterize and break down the concept, he borrowed the word tracer from the dance videos he was watching, and an entire classification of Poi tricks was born. And it's not hard to understand why. Body tracers add a dash of extra spice to traditional Poi tricks. Something that was originally pretty but kind of meh takes on a whole new dimension once your hand is tracing along your body with it. Body tracers are slinky and sexy and can easily be thrown in as ornamentation on a variety of other Poi tricks. Since then, countless Poi spinners have used a multitude of different techniques to broaden the scope of the body tracing world and add their own unique stamp to it. So let's take a look at some of those techniques that they employed. One of my first introductions to body tracing was through a workshop taught by my Poi guru, Alien John, where he demonstrated how you could add reels to linear isolations to turn them into a variety of different variations on snakes. Snakes are a term and idea that we take from the club juggling world, but linear isolations turned out to be the key to unlocking them for Poi. In addition to the split time same direction version in wall plane that most of us are familiar with, there are also vertical snakes similar to Nevisol and G's work. One of the more recognizable variants on this approach are the split time opposite snakes that are characteristic of Nikki Evers' style. Pretty cool, huh? In addition to linear isolations, one of my favorite approaches to creating body tracers is to add reels to flowers and Vulcan Tech Gospel hybrids. You can think of the segments in between petals on anti-spin flowers as being like linear extensions and switch the beat of the Poi for that segment behind the body. This is the idea behind Nevisol's body tracing hybrid. But honestly, this approach could work with any VTG hybrid whatsoever. I actually did a 2-video series on this very idea several years ago that I'll link to down in the description. And hey, if the words Vulcan Tech Gospel, linear isolation, and linear extension are Greek to you, check out the links that I have down in the description for resources that'll help you learn more about these topics as well. And now we have come to the Mount Everest of body tracing approaches, Leo Akaza's framework. Leo realized as he was breaking down body tracers that in many cases he could identify body tracers by having reels occurring at certain landmarks around the body. And so he reasoned, why not just drill performing a reel at each of those different landmarks and see what you could make of it? Leo released a video breaking down what he referred to as component reels. That is, practicing a reel or tic-tac at several of these landmarks around the body and assigning a number or value to it. You could then create new body tracers by coming up with different series of these numbers and simply moving back and forth between them. Pretty crazy, right? It basically became a way to invent new body tracers with enough practice and patience. This system was later extended by Cryptic Firecat to include points around the legs, elbows, and wrists to become as comprehensive as possible in mapping out potential body tracing landmarks. I highly recommend checking out both Leo and Cryptic's resources for body tracer mapping and see if it helps stir up your own creative juices. Who knows, you might discover a new body tracer that no one has ever performed before. I'll link to them both down in the description. Now, with all that, there is one final and kind of unexpected way in which body tracers can show up in Poi spinning. Contact Poi. So this is going to be one of those once you see it, you can't really unsee it moments when it comes to Poi spinning. But most, if not all, contact Poi rolls that involve compound paths can also be thought of as body tracers. My favorite example of this is the folding line, a trick borrowed from contact juggling, but that operates in a completely different way with contact Poi. Here, the Poi handle must swing back and forth in front of and behind the body as it rolls along the length of your arm. If you compare it to a snake, you'll see that the movement of the Poi is almost identical between them. The only difference is which end is in contact with the body. You can also think of frontside angel rolls in the same fashion, as well as contact rolls that travel between the forearms. In each case, you're performing a body tracer with that Poi handle. Pretty crazy to think about, right? Body tracers have been part of the Poi world for far longer than I have, even if they weren't always called that. They've become one of the most popular and useful Poi tricks out there, and they're probably not going anywhere anytime soon. What are your favorite body tracers, and where did you learn them? I'd love to know. Leave me a comment and be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to help other people find this video and help my channel grow. And a huge thank you, because this video would not be possible without the kind contributions contributions of these wonderful folks right here. These are my Flow patrons over on Patreon, and they help make this video and all the videos on my channel possible. If you'd like to help me out in my mission to bring poi spinning and flow arts to the wider world and help people learn to be more creative with their bodies, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and signing up. You can get early access to all of my content, a say in what topics I tackle in the future, plus some behind the scenes and extra content too. So go check that out. Please and thank you. Do you have a category of poi tricks or a poi concept you'd like to see me break out in a future explainer video? Let me know down in the comments. These videos take a while to research, but they also tend to be very rewarding to present. Thanks so much for watching, and have yourselves a great week. I'll see you next time. Peace.